The gun was there. Rosa Vega knew it before she could explain how she knew it, before her mind had assembled the separate details into anything as clean as proof. She knew it in the small, cold hollow beneath her ribs, in the ancient tightening at the base of her neck, in the part of her that had survived 11 years, by noticing danger half a second before danger noticed her. At 7 on a warm Thursday morning, she stood in the marble foyer of the Costa mansion, with both hands raised toward the throat of the most dangerous man in New York. Emilio Costa barely seemed aware of her. That was normal. For 8 months, Rosa had ironed his shirts, prepared his coffee, replaced the water beside his bed, remembered which newspapers he wanted folded and which he wanted left untouched. Every morning before he left the house, she tied his necktie because Emilio disliked mirrors before breakfast, and because Mrs. Bell, the housekeeper, had discovered Rosa could make a Windsor knot perfectly symmetrical without looking twice. To Emilio, she was efficient, quiet, reliable. Furniture with hands, Rosa had worked very hard to become exactly that. Beyond the tall glass doors, a black Mercedes waited in the circular drive. The engine idled softly beneath the whisper of the fountain. A man stood beside the rear passenger door in a dark coat buttoned almost to his throat. Rosa had seen hundreds of men wait for Emilio Costa. They all behaved differently, but there were rituals inside the differences. Men who belonged to the house knew where to stand. They knew which security camera watched the drive. They knew that when another Costa soldier passed within several feet, there was a small acknowledgement, a nod so slight, most people would never notice it. The man beside the Mercedes had done none of those things. And his coat was wrong. The morning was already warm enough that Rosa had opened 2 kitchen windows before 6. Yet the stranger wore wool buttoned high. His right elbow floated a fraction away from his body. His weight rested mostly on his left leg. His right hip was protected. Something heavy sat high against his ribs beneath the coat. Rosa's fingers stopped on Emilio's tie. Only for half a second. But Emilio noticed. His eyes dropped to her hands. Problème? One word. Calm. Rosa looked through the glass again. The driver glanced toward the fountain. One of Emilio's guards crossed behind him. No, not. Nothing. Her brother's voice returned from 11 years ago, as clearly as if Dominic Vega were standing beside her. Don't watch the weapon, Rosie. You might never see the weapon. Watch what the body does because the weapon is there. She had promised herself she would never listen to that voice again. She crossed the wide end of Emilio's charcoal tie over the narrow one. Mr. Costa. He looked down. Rosa leaned closer. A strand of her dark hair slipped forward, almost touching his jaw. To anyone watching through the glass, it would look as though the maid were merely adjusting her employer's collar. Today's driver has a gun under his coat, she whispered, and he isn't one of your men. For the first time in 8 months, Emilio Costa became completely still beneath her hands. He did not turn toward the driveway. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not even blink differently. That frightened Rosa, more than panic would have. His gaze remained on her face. Keep tying my tie. Rosa obeyed. Tell me. The coat is too heavy for the weather. He's protecting his right side. Look at how his elbow sits. I told you not to stop. Her hands had slowed. She forced them to move. He shifts whenever anyone comes close to his right side. Whatever he's carrying is high, probably near his ribs. Your men acknowledge one another when they pass. He doesn't. One of them walked within 3 feet of him, and he didn't react. Emilio's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Could be new. No. Why? He keeps looking at the cameras. So? Your men don't. That made him silent. Rosa tightened the knot. The people who belong here know they're being watched, she whispered. People who don't belong here need to know where they're being watched from. The muscles beneath Emilio's shirt remained relaxed. Only his jaw changed. A tiny pressure. Then he asked, How certain are you? Rosa looked down at the silk between her fingers. There were answers that kept servants employed. There were answers that kept people alive. She chose the second. Certain enough that I couldn't let you get into that car. Something changed in his eyes. Not warmth. Not gratitude. Recognition. As though a painting that had hung unnoticed in his hallway for months had suddenly turned its head. Emilio lifted one hand. Rosa instinctively stiffened, but he only closed his fingers around both of hers, where they rested against his chest. His hand was warm, large enough to cover hers entirely. Beneath her palms, she could feel his heartbeat. Slow, steady, impossible. Finish the knot, he said quietly. When you step away, smile. Sir. Smile, Rosa. It startled her that he knew her first name. She finished the Windsor knot and pressed the small dimple into the silk. Then she stepped back. She smiled. A servant's smile. Pleasant. Forgettable. Emilio adjusted his cuff. Go to the kitchen. She started away. Rosa. She stopped. Do not look through the windows. She understood. Yes, sir. She crossed the foyer. Behind her, she heard Emilio take out his phone. Marco, he said. The name stopped her for reasons she could not explain. Miss Study. Now. Rosa continued walking. She did not look back. But before the kitchen door closed behind her, Dominic's old voice whispered through her memory. When something feels wrong, Rosie, don't argue with the feeling just because you don't have the evidence yet. She entered the kitchen and closed the door. Then the mansion went silent. Rosa stood at the sink. 10 seconds. 20. 30. She heard the crunch of shoes moving quickly across gravel. Someone shouted one word she couldn't make out. A second voice answered. Then came a short, ugly sound. Not a gunshot. A man beginning to resist, and discovering resistance was a mistake. After that, silence again. Rosa turned on the faucet because she needed something ordinary to happen. Water filled the sink. She submerged her hands. They were shaking now. Not badly, but enough. A minute later, the Mercedes engine changed pitch. The car moved down the drive. Rosa stared into the water. She knew, with absolute certainty, that the life she had spent 11 years constructing had just ended. You did not save Emilio Costa from an assassination attempt and return to polishing silver. More importantly, you did not reveal that you could see things his trained security detail had missed and expect a man like him to forget. She had opened a door. Behind it waited everything she had run from. Dominic, the Bronx, the river, the men with expensive shoes who spoke quietly because they never needed to shout. Rosa gripped the edge of the sink. Stupid, she whispered. But she knew she would do it again. She had seen the gun. Emilio would have entered the car. Whatever else he was, whatever terrible stories people told about him, Rosa had watched a man walking toward his death without knowing it. She couldn't stay silent, not even to protect herself. The kitchen door opened. Rosa looked up. Marco Rossi entered. She had known Marco for 8 months, in the way servants knew powerful men. By coffee preferences, footsteps, and the mood a room adopted when they arrived. He was in his late 40s, silver beginning at his temples, always perfectly dressed. He was handsome, in a polished, almost artificial way. Rosa had never seen a wrinkle in his jacket, or a spot on his cuffs. Emilio Costa inspired fear. Marco Rossi inspired comfort. Rosa had always suspected the second was more dangerous. The girl who sees things. Marco smiled. Rosa dried her hands. Mr. Rossi, apparently, you had an interesting morning. I wouldn't call it interesting. No. He walked farther into the kitchen. No. Marco stopped opposite the island. You saved Emilio's life. I told him what I saw. Same difference. Rosa lowered her eyes. She knew how to look submissive without becoming inattentive. Marco's jacket was navy, hand-tailored. His left cuff sat perhaps 1/8 of an inch lower than his right. His shoes were spotless, despite the damp gravel outside. He hadn't been in the driveway. Interesting. We had to clean up quite a mess because of your observation, Marco said. I'm sorry. His smile widened. Are you? Rosa looked at him. Marco rested one hand against the marble counter, his right hand, then shifted it away. His jacket opened. For an instant, Rosa saw the outline of a holster high against his ribs. Nothing unusual in Emilio Costa's world, but the placement was nearly identical to the assassin's. Marco followed her gaze. Rosa immediately looked at the floor. Too late. Don't worry, he said pleasantly. Most men in this house carry. I'm not worried. That's unusual, too. Rosa said nothing. Marco moved around the island. Do you know what I find fascinating about servants? No, sir. People stop seeing them. His voice remained almost friendly. They discuss business while you pour wine. They argue while you clear plates. They leave documents open while you dust around them. A good servant can learn more about a family than a lawyer. Rosa felt the cold, hollow return beneath her ribs. Marco stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne. Have you learned much about ours? No. 8 months, and nothing? I try not to listen. Marco laughed softly. Everyone listens. Listening and remembering aren't the same thing. That made him study her. For the first time, the smile weakened. Then it returned. Smart answer. His eyes shifted toward the drawer where the internal house phones were kept. One glance. Less than a second. But Rosa saw it. Emilio wants you upstairs. He stepped aside. Rosa moved toward the door. Rosa. She stopped. Marco's expression was friendly again. A soldier is worth more than a servant in our world. 10 servants, perhaps. She waited. But Emilio has always been sentimental about strays. Something in his voice had changed. Only slightly. One day, Marco continued, that weakness will cost him. Rosa looked at him. Marco smiled. Don't keep him waiting. She left, and filed every word away. Emilio's study occupied the eastern corner of the mansion, a room of dark walnut, leather and windows overlooking the city in the distance. Rosa had entered it dozens of times to clean, and never once while Emilio was inside. Now Marco escorted her to the door. He knocked. Come. They entered. Emilio stood beside the window. His tie was still perfectly straight. Leave us, Marco. Marco paused. Emilio, considering what happened this morning. Leave us. A fraction of hesitation. Rosa saw it. Marco left. The door closed. Emilio remained facing the window. Sit. Rosa sat on the edge of a leather chair. He turned. The man outside carried a Glock, 19, under his right arm. Rosa said nothing. My regular driver, Anthony Caruso, was found 40 minutes ago in a motel parking lot in Queens. Broken arm. Concussion. Whoever replaced him knew his route, his arrival time, and which entrance he used. Emilio crossed the room. 6 armed men passed the assassin this morning. He sat opposite her. 11 times. Rosa swallowed. None saw what you saw. I've had practice. I assumed that. His eyes held hers. Who are you? Rosa Vega. I know your name. Then you know who I am. No. His voice remained quiet. I know you came here 8 months ago with references from 2 families in Westchester. I know you rent a small apartment even though you could live on the property. I know you don't drink, don't gamble, and send almost half your wages into savings. I know you've never been arrested and have no living immediate family. Rosa's throat tightened. Emilio noticed. That last part bothers you. My brother. What about him? She considered lying, then remembered the man outside. The assassin. Marco's strange words. The sense that she was already standing inside a trap, whether she admitted it or not. Dominic taught me. Dominic who? Vega. Emilio changed. Almost nothing. A blink delayed by half a beat. But Rosa saw it. Dominic Vega, she repeated. Emilio leaned back. You know that name. He didn't answer immediately. You really do see everything. Not everything. Enough. Did you know him? No. That's not what I asked. His gaze sharpened. For a moment, Rosa remembered exactly who sat opposite her. Then Emilio exhaled. I knew of him. The room became colder. Rosa clasped her hands together. How? Tell me first how he taught you. It felt like surrender, but she had already crossed the line. My brother was 8 years older than me. He started running errands for men in the Bronx when he was 17. Money at first, envelopes, cars, then other things. What things? He stopped telling me. Rosa looked toward the window. He thought I was too young to understand what he was doing. He was wrong. Dominic liked teaching me things. How to know when someone was following me. How to tell whether a man was carrying a weapon, which exits to notice when I entered a restaurant. Her mouth almost formed a smile. He made it into a game. Then the almost smile disappeared. He said the body always confesses, even when the mouth lies. Emilio's expression shifted. Good advice. It got him killed. No. His choices got him killed. Rosa looked sharply at him. Emilio didn't soften the words. Neither did he look away. She hated him for half a second, then realized he had given Dominic something she herself rarely could. Responsibility, without contempt. He was 22, she said. I was 19 when they pulled him out of the East River. Emilio's jaw tightened. I remember. The words struck her. You remember? A young runner, wrong crew, debt connected to someone above him. He was made an example. Rosa's nails dug into her palm. Who? I don't know. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to believe I don't lie when the truth is more useful. That's convenient. Yes. His calm infuriated her. Rosa stood. I should go. Sit down. No. Emilio Rosa. He was much taller than she was. For 8 months, Rosa had deliberately forgotten how intimidating that could be. Rosa. Something in his voice stopped her. Dominic Vega died 11 years ago, under a structure my father helped build. I will not insult you by pretending men associated with my family had clean hands. Her eyes burned. But I did not order your brother's death. Did you know? Not until afterward. And you did nothing. Emilio absorbed that without defense. No. The answer hurt more, because it was honest. Rosa looked away. Then why am I here? Because this morning, someone placed an assassin 10 feet from my front door. Emilio walked to the desk. That doesn't happen because an enemy gets lucky. Someone gave him the schedule. Someone replaced my driver. Someone knew my security rotation. He opened a drawer, removed a thin folder. Inside were photographs, shipping manifests, and handwritten notes. For a year, I've watched small failures accumulate. Cargo seized 30 minutes after routes changed. Meetings discovered by men who weren't invited. Accounts frozen the day before money moved. He placed the folder down. Someone inside my organization is selling pieces of me. Rosa stared at the photographs. And you don't know who. I have suspicions. Marco? Silence. She wished immediately she hadn't said it. Emilio's expression hardened. I didn't say that. You didn't need to. That is exactly the kind of assumption that will get you killed. Rosa held his gaze. He told me a soldier is worth 10 servants. Then he said your weakness is keeping strays. Emilio's face became unreadable. When? 10 minutes ago. What else? He looked at the internal phone drawer. He knew there had been a cleanup, but his shoes were clean. He hadn't been outside. That proves nothing. I know. Good. Emilio closed the folder. Because Marco Rossi has stood beside me for 19 years. Then why are we talking about him? His eyes flashed. Rosa realized she'd struck something painful. Because, Emilio said after a long silence, 19 years is exactly why I need proof before I destroy him. There it was. Not confirmation. Something worse. Fear of confirmation. Emilio sat again. I cannot investigate the people closest to me without them knowing. My men are known. My accountants are watched. My phones are compromised often enough that I assume nothing said electronically remains private. His gaze settled on her. But nobody sees you. Rosa understood. No, I haven't asked yet. I'm answering early. A trace of amusement touched his face and vanished. You want me to spy on him. I want you to do what you did this morning. Accuse people of carrying guns? Say. One word. Nothing more. Rosa shook her head. I spent 11 years getting away from this. I know. No, you don't. Then tell me. I learned how not to notice cars behind me. I learned how not to recognize men from Dominic's old neighborhood. I learned how to hear people discussing things at tables I was cleaning and forget the words before I reached the kitchen. Her voice grew rough. I became good at being invisible because invisible people survive. Emilio watched her. And this morning? Rosa closed her eyes briefly. This morning I couldn't let you die. When she opened them, his expression had changed. Something warmer had appeared beneath the coldness. Dangerously warm. Why? I don't know. That's a lie. Then, maybe I don't want to know. For once, Emilio had no immediate answer. He walked toward her. Stopped a few feet away. If you help me, I'll reopen Dominic's file. Rosa froze. Every record, every name, every debt, every person involved. Why? Because you deserve to know. Nobody in your world does anything because someone deserves it. Usually true. What do you want? Your eyes. Rosa laughed once without humor. That's a terrible bargain. I'm a terrible man. At least you know. I've had practice. Despite herself, Rosa almost smiled. Emilio extended his hand. Stay invisible. She looked at it. But don't be blind. For 11 years, Rosa had imagined finding Dominic's killers. In some fantasies, she screamed at them. In others, She killed them. Mostly she simply asked why. Why him? Why 22? Why had one stupid decision deserved a river? She looked at Emilio's hand, then placed hers in it. Only what I see, she said. Only what you see. No guns. No guns. No hurting anyone. That's my responsibility, not yours. And if I want out? You walk. Rosa searched his face. Really? No one has ever accused me of keeping people who don't want to stay. Marco just did. Emilio's eyes darkened. Marco says many things. He released her hand. Go back to work. Rosa reached the door. Rosa. She turned. From now on, you leave this property only with Daniel Mercer or Paul Santoro. Why? Because whoever hired that driver will eventually understand how I spotted him. A chill ran through her. And when they do, Emilio's expression became very still. They'll wonder who saw what everyone else missed. The following weeks taught Rosa that fear had rhythms. The first days were worst. Every unfamiliar face seemed dangerous. Every car that slowed outside the gates made her heart accelerate. She slept badly and woke at sounds that weren't there. But routine returned, because routine always did. Breakfast, laundry, coffee, silver, and observation. Emilio never asked for reports in front of others. Sometimes she would enter his study carrying tea and leave a folded note beneath the saucer. Sometimes he passed her in the hall and asked an apparently meaningless question. Wine delivery? Driver watched the west camera twice. Anything else? Expensive shoes. How expensive? Too expensive for the van. That driver disappeared from future deliveries. Another afternoon. Mr. Bennett? Afraid. Of me? Not you. How do you know? He watches Marco before answering questions. Emilio said nothing. A week later, Bennett was transferred away from financial records. Rosa never asked why. The evidence accumulated slowly. Nothing dramatic enough to condemn Marco. Everything uncomfortable enough to keep suspicion alive. A missing ledger. A meeting Marco claimed lasted 40 minutes, that Rosa knew had lasted almost 2 hours because she'd seen his car return. A phone he switched off whenever Emilio entered. The smallest tightening at the corners of his mouth whenever Emilio spoke about plans months into the future. Rosa recorded none of it on paper. She remembered. Dominic had taught her that too. Paper can be stolen. Then came the boiler man. Rosa saw him shortly after 9 on a Tuesday evening. He entered through the service door carrying a heavy black bag. Sweat dampened his collar. He refused to set the bag down. When Mrs. Bell asked his name, he answered too quickly. Every nerve in Rosa's body ignited. She found Emilio in the hallway. Don't let him downstairs. Emilio looked up from his phone. Who? The boiler technician. What happened? Everything. Specifics. He's sweating. Won't put down the bag. Avoids eye contact. Anything else? Isn't that enough? No. Emilio. It was the first time she had used his first name. Both noticed. Neither acknowledged it. Please. He studied her, then caught her hand. Come here. What are you doing? Look at me. The man is going downstairs. Rosa. Emilio. Look at me. She did. His name is Aaron Feld. He's been servicing this house for 9 years. Her breathing stopped. No. Yes. The bag contains tools. He was shaking. Because he recognized me. Rosa stared at him. He's afraid of you? Most intelligent people are. The joke didn't help. Shame flooded her. I was wrong. Yes. She pulled her hand away. Emilio didn't let her. I was wrong. I heard you. You trusted me. I still do. You shouldn't. That changed something in his face. Why? Because what if I'm wrong about Marco? There. The real terror. Emilio understood immediately. He lowered his voice. You're tired. I'm fine. You slept 3 hours last night. Rosa looked at him sharply. How do you know? You aren't the only person capable of observation. She almost laughed. Almost cried. Instead, she looked toward the basement door. I could have been right. Yes. And you would have let him go down there. No. What? I had 2 men watching him while I spoke to you. Rosa stared. Emilio's thumb moved slowly across her knuckles. Your job is to see. Mine is to decide. What if I miss something? Then I may miss it too. What if someone dies because... Stop. His voice wasn't harsh. That made it stronger. You've been alone with this since you were 19, haven't you? Rosa couldn't answer. You decided that survival meant never being wrong because nobody would catch you if you were. Her eyes filled. She hated him for seeing that. You don't have to be right every time, Emilio said. You only have to stop carrying it alone. The boiler man repaired the boiler. He left at 11. Nothing exploded. No one died. That night, Rosa cried silently in her room, for reasons she couldn't entirely explain. Afterward, something between her and Emilio became different. Not romantic. Not yet. Smaller than that. More dangerous. Trust. She started noticing things about him that had nothing to do with survival. He drank coffee after midnight, although it worsened his insomnia. He read every report twice. He rubbed the bridge of his nose when angry, but touched his left cuff when worried. He paid an old gardener named Joseph a full salary, despite Joseph being too arthritic to work more than 3 hours each morning. Once Rosa heard Marco suggest retirement. Emilio answered, "This garden was here before you were. Joseph stays." She remembered that. She remembered Emilio calling the wife of a wounded guard himself. She remembered him standing alone afterward for several minutes, eyes closed. She remembered that he never allowed violence inside the house if it could be avoided. None of it made him good. Rosa knew better than to romanticize dangerous men, but it made him human. That was worse, because monsters were easy to avoid. Human beings could be loved. Emilio was learning her too. One morning, a cup appeared beside her while she folded linen. Coffee. 3 sugars. She looked toward the doorway. He was already walking away. Another day. He passed her in the hall. "Stop checking the west door." Rosa blinked. "What?" "You check the lock every night at 11. "How do you know?" "I see things." "You steal my lines now?" A faint smile. "I own the house. Technically, they're my lines." She laughed. The sound startled them both. Emilio stopped. Rosa stopped. For 8 months, he had never heard her laugh. His expression became so strange that she immediately looked away. "Good night, Mr. Costa." "Emilio." She looked back. When we're alone, her heart beat once too hard. "Good night, Emilio." That night, he stood in the hallway long after she'd gone. 5 weeks after the gun in the driveway, Rosa entered Emilio's study at 2:17 in the morning carrying coffee. He was asleep. She stopped. Emilio Costa did not sleep in public. Apparently his own study didn't count. His head rested against one forearm, papers spread beneath him. His jacket hung over the chair. Without vigilance, he looked younger, not harmless, never harmless, but exhausted. 40, perhaps, instead of timeless. Rosa set down the coffee. She should leave. Instead, she noticed the open window. Cool air moved through the room. She took his jacket from the chair, walked behind him. Very carefully, she lowered it across his shoulders. His hand snapped around her wrist. Rosa gasped. His eyes opened. For 1 second, there was nothing human in them. Pure reflex. Then recognition. Rosa. His grip loosened immediately, but did not disappear. "It's me. I know. You were cold." He looked at the jacket, then at hair. "You covered me. That generally follows from someone being cold. You're making jokes now." Apparently. His thumb rested against the pulse in her wrist. Neither moved. The room became too quiet. Rosa suddenly became aware of everything. His hand. His face inches from hers. The scent of coffee. The rain beginning outside. The fact that she was no longer afraid of him. That frightened her most. "Emilio." He stood slowly. His hand slipped from her wrist but caught her fingers before losing contact. Rosa looked down. Then, up. Something lived in his expression that had nothing to do with suspicion. Nothing to do with Dominic. Nothing to do with Marco. Her breath caught. A phone rang. They separated instantly. Emilio turned away. The moment vanished. He answered. "Costa." Rosa reached the door. "Rosa." She looked back. He still wore the jacket she'd placed around him. "Sleep. So should you. That's an order?" "En observation." She left. In her bedroom, Rosa sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, then pressed both hands against her face. "No." She whispered it, as though refusing could change anything. "No, no, no." But Rosa Vega, was very good at seeing truth, even when the truth belonged to her. She was falling in love with Emilio Costa. And worse, she suspected he was falling too. Marco noticed before either of them admitted it. His questions changed, spending a lot of time upstairs lately. Rosa continued polishing the dining room silver. Mr. Costa has more work. Mr. Costa? Marco smiled. Still formal. Rosa kept polishing. You know what happens to people who become important to men like Emilio? No. They become leverage. Rosa's hand stopped. Marco saw. Something to think about. He walked away. That evening, she told Emilio. His reaction was immediate. From now on, Daniel sleeps in the East Hall. That's unnecessary. It's not a discussion. You promised I could walk. And you can. With a guard? If you're still inside my house. Yes. Rosa glared at him. You don't own me. I know. Do you? Emilio came around the desk. I know exactly what I don't own. The anger in his voice disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. That's the problem. Rosa's heart tightened. Neither said more. The investigation continued. Then Dominic returned to the center of it. Emilio called Rosa into his study late one evening. A photograph lay on the desk. 3 men outside a social club in the Bronx. The date stamped in the corner was 11 years old. Rosa recognized one immediately. Dominic. Her brother stood in the background, younger than memory allowed him to be. Laughing. Alive. Rosa touched the photograph. Where did you get this? Archive. Who are they? Emilio pointed to a man beside Dominic. Salvatore Greco. Dead. Another. Peter Falcone. Prison. Then the third. Rosa looked. Young Marco Rossi. Her blood went cold. No. Marco managed Bronx collections for my father during that period. You knew? Not until today. You said you knew Dominic's death was connected to your father's organization. It was. I didn't know Marco's unit touched it. Rosa stared at young Marco. The same immaculate posture. The same controlled smile. Did he kill him? I don't know. Did he order it? I don't know. Then find out. Emilio looked at her. Rosa, find out. You're angry. My brother is standing 10 feet from the man who may have murdered him, which is why you cannot go near Marco tonight. I've been near him every day. Tonight you're different. Don't tell me what I am. I'm telling you what he will see. Rosa stepped back. Don't let Dominic make you reckless, Emilio said. She laughed bitterly. Don't let me make you sentimental. Silence. Emilio's expression changed. Rosa realized what she'd said. He approached her. Slowly. Too late. 2 words. Barely audible. Her anger disappeared beneath something far more dangerous. Emilio. A knock came at the door. Marco entered before being invited. Rosa stepped away. Marco's eyes moved between them. Only once. But she saw. And knew. He knew. From that day, Marco began setting traps. A key left on a table. Rosa ignored it. A document deliberately exposed beneath a folder. She didn't read it. A false conversation conducted loudly outside the pantry about Emilio traveling to Boston. Rosa mentioned it to Emilio. He smiled without humor. I'm going nowhere. He's testing me. Yes. So he knows. He suspects. Difference? One gives us time. How much? Not enough. Emilio began moving pieces. Men Rosa had seen for months disappeared from the mansion. Routes changed. Phones were replaced. Marco remained. Always smiling. Always useful. Always close. Then came Thursday. Rain covered New York from before dawn. Rosa woke, with the cold hollow beneath her ribs already waiting. She couldn't explain it. Nothing had happened. Yet, at 6:45 she entered Emilio's dressing room. A charcoal suit lay ready. Deep oxblood tie. She lifted it. You hate that one. I don't. You never choose it. I chose it today. Rosa looked at him. Emilio adjusted his cuff. You looked at it last week. Heat rose into her face. You noticed? I notice everything you do. She looked down. That's inconvenient. Extremely. She stepped closer and began tying the silk. The ritual had started everything. Now it felt unbearably intimate. Where are you going? Downtown. The family meeting. Yes. Marco? Staying here. Rosa's hands stopped. Why? Because I asked him to. She looked up. Emilio's face told her nothing. You're doing something. I'm having lunch. You're a terrible liar. I'm an excellent liar. Not to me. A small smile. No, apparently not. She finished the knot. The feeling beneath her ribs worsened. Emilio. Don't go. His expression changed. Why? I don't know. Did you see something? No. Then I have to. She hated that he was right. Outside, engine started. Rosa smoothed the tie against his chest. Her fingers remained there. Come home. The words escaped before she could stop them. Emilio went completely still. Rosa wished she could take them back. Not because they weren't true. Because they were. His eyes softened. He raised one hand and touched her cheek, then bent his head. His lips brushed her temple. Barely a kiss. Enough to destroy every defense she had. I intend to. He left. Rosa stood alone. The SUVs disappeared through the gates at 7:15. At 7:22, Rosa noticed the first wrong thing. Daniel wasn't at the east entrance. At 7:25, the security monitor in the kitchen briefly went black. 3 seconds. Then returned. At 7:27, Marco walked through the west corridor carrying no phone. Rosa knew he always carried two. At 7:31, she found Emilio's study door open. 1 inch. Emilio always locked it when he left. The cold hollow beneath her ribs became ice. Don't run toward danger. Dominic's voice. Rosa almost obeyed. Then another memory followed. But don't turn your back on it either. She approached. No sound. The door stood slightly ajar. Through the gap she saw Marco. He was behind Emilio's desk. A phone pressed to his ear. Not either phone, Rosa knew. A third. She stopped breathing. Marco spoke quietly. No. The sit-down is the play. Rosa's heart slammed. Bianchi's men take him when he leaves. Not inside. Too many witnesses. Silence as he listened. Clean. Another pause. By tonight the Costa name means nothing. Rosa's hand covered her mouth. She had to warn Emilio. Slowly she stepped backward. The floorboard beneath her heel creaked. Marco stopped speaking. Rosa froze. Through the gap his head turned. Their eyes met. For 5 weeks, Rosa had wondered what Marco Rossi looked like without his mask. Now she knew. Nothing dramatic happened. No snarl. No rage. The pleasantness simply vanished. What remained was empty. Cold. Marco lowered the phone. Rosa did not move. The girl who sees things. Her hand slipped into her apron pocket. Emilio had made her memorize one emergency number. One press. No conversation required. She found the button. Pressed. Marco stepped toward the door. Rosa stepped inside instead. Running would turn her back. She would never make the stairs. Marco closed the door. How much did you hear? Rosa said nothing. That's unfortunate. His right hand moved toward his jacket. Rosa watched his eyes. Not the hand. Never the hand. You won't shoot me here. Marco stopped. A small smile returned. Won't I? No. Why? The rug. His eyes flickered down. Rosa continued. Persian silk. Emilio told Mrs. Bell it cost $80,000. Your life isn't worth $80,000. I know. Marco's smile widened. So why would the rug matter? Because bloodstains. He tilted his head. And? You're clean. Marco became still. Rosa's heart hammered so hard she was certain the open phone line could hear it. You've spent your whole life keeping yourself clean. Other men do the ugly part. Other men disappear. Other men carry the guns. Marco's hand remained inside his jacket. But not you, Rosa continued. You make lessons. His eyes sharpened. You told me that the first morning. A soldier is worth 10 servants. You remember everything. Unfortunately. Then you remember I warned you. You warned me Emilio keeps strays. Doesn't he? You hate that. Marco smiled. I hate inefficiency. No. Rosa took one step toward the window. More visible from outside. Marco noticed. Stay where you are. She stopped. You hate mercy. Mercy is weakness. That's what Dominic was, wasn't it? The smile disappeared. There. Rosa knew. Marco knew Dominic. You remember him. I've known thousands of boys like your brother. But you remember him. Marco said nothing. Rosa felt tears threaten. She refused them. He was 22. He was stupid. The words hit harder than a slap. He trusted men who didn't care whether he lived. Marco's voice remained calm. He borrowed what wasn't his, protected someone he shouldn't have protected, made choices. What did you do to him? Marco's eyes changed. You really want to know? Rosa's body screamed at her to stop. Her heart demanded the opposite. Yes. Marco stepped closer. I taught the neighborhood what happens when one boy decides rules don't apply to him. The room blurred. Dominic, 22, laughing in the kitchen. Cigarette, cheap cologne. Watch the hands, Rosie. Rosa forced herself to breathe. You killed him. Mendy, you killed him. I authorized a correction. The words nearly broke her. A correction. 11 years, reduced to 2 words. Rosa's hand curled inside her pocket around the phone. Marco watched her. Does Emilio know you're listening? She said nothing. Of course he does. Marco smiled again. That's why he's been changing routes. He understood. Too much. 5 weeks, he murmured. I kept wondering how he suddenly grew eyes. His gaze moved over Rosa. Then I realized they weren't his. He drew the gun. Rosa did not step back. Your brother made the same mistake. What mistake? Thinking courage changes mathematics. Marco raised the weapon. 1 gun. 1 unarmed woman. No amount of courage changes the answer. Rosa looked at him. Then, at his immaculate cuffs, his perfect tie, his expression. She remembered Emilio. Your job is to see. Mine is to decide. She remembered Dominic. Don't answer what a man asks, Rosie. Answer what he's afraid you're going to say. Rosa understood. Marco didn't need to kill her immediately. He needed to know what Emilio knew. That was why she was still alive. So she smiled. It surprised him. You don't want his empire. Marco's eyes narrowed. What? Emilio's. I suggest you stop talking. That's what I got wrong. Rosa. I thought you wanted his chair. Marco's finger settled against the trigger. You don't. Enough. You want him to lose it. Something flashed across Marco's face. Tiny. Real. Rosa saw. 20 years beside him, she whispered. 20 years believing you're stronger, smarter, harder. Shut up. But everyone still follows him. Shut up. Not because they're more afraid of him. Marco stepped forward. Because they choose him. His face cracked. Only for a heartbeat. But beneath the polished mask, Rosa saw it. The wound. Old. Deep. Humiliating. She had him. Every time Emilio spared someone you wanted punished, it felt like an insult. Marco's jaw clenched. Every time he protected someone weak, you thought it proved he wasn't fit to lead. Mercy gets men killed. No. Rosa's voice became almost gentle. His mercy proved he could afford something you couldn't. Marco's breathing changed. What? To be powerful, without becoming cruel. The gun lifted. Rosa's heart stopped. You didn't betray him because you wanted his empire. Marco's face was no longer pleasant. You betrayed him because every day he remained in that chair was proof that you had spent your whole life becoming a monster for nothing. Silence. Then Marco smiled. Not the old smile. Something dead. You see far too much. Rosa heard a tiny sound inside her apron pocket. Click. The line disconnected. Her blood went cold. Marco heard it too. His eyes dropped to her pocket, then returned to her face. The last trace of amusement disappeared. You called him. Rosa said nothing. Marco moved faster than she expected. He crossed the distance between them and tore the phone from her apron. The screen was dark. He looked at the number. His face changed. Not fear. Calculation. How long? Rosa remained silent. How long was the line open? Nothing. Marco threw the phone against the wall. It shattered. You think he's coming back? Rosa looked toward the window. Rain streaked the glass. New York stretched between Emilio and the mansion. Too much city. Too many minutes. Marco seemed to read the realization on her face. No, he said softly. Even Emilio Costa can't bend distance. He raised the gun again. Rosa watched his eyes. She thought of Dominic. She thought of the river. She thought of Emilio standing in the foyer 5 weeks ago while she tied his charcoal tie. Today's driver has a gun. She thought of his hand covering hers. You don't have to be right every time. She thought of the jacket around his shoulders at 2 a.m, the coffee, 3 sugars, his lips against her temple less than half an hour ago. Come home. Rosa's eyes filled. Marco mistook it for fear. Now you understand. Rosa looked directly into his eyes. No. I understand why you'll lose. Marco's finger tightened. Somewhere downstairs, a door slammed. Both heard it. Marco's eyes flicked toward the study entrance. 1 second. One tiny confession of the body. Rosa saw it, and she knew that whether the person coming through that house was Emilio, Daniel, a guard, or nobody who could save her at all, she had exactly one chance. Marco turned back. The muzzle centered on her chest. Rosa shifted her weight. Marco began to pull the trigger, and the study door exploded inward. Marco flinched toward the sound. That was all Rosa needed. She did not wait to see who had come through it. She did not wait for a command. She did not look at the gun. She looked at Marco's eyes. Dominic had taught her that when she was 12 years old, sitting cross-legged on the cracked linoleum floor of their Bronx kitchen, while he held an unloaded revolver he should never have owned. The hand is already late by the time you see it move, Rosie. Watch the eyes. People look where the damage is going before they make it happen. Marco's gaze snapped toward the doorway. Rosa dropped sideways. The gun fired. The sound was enormous inside the dark wooden room. A section of paneling burst behind her, splinters cutting the air where her head had been a fraction of a second earlier. Then 2 men hit Marco at once. Daniel Mercer came through the doorway low and hard, shoulder driving into Marco's ribs. Paul Santoro followed immediately, catching Marco's gun wrist before he could fire again. The 3 men crashed against Emilio's desk. Papers flew. A lamp struck the floor. Marco twisted with astonishing speed for a man his age and drove an elbow into Daniel's face, but Paul already had both hands locked around his wrist. Drop it. Marco tried to turn the gun. Toward Paul. Toward Rosa. Toward anyone. Daniel slammed his forearm into Marco's throat. The weapon fell. Paul kicked it away. 3 seconds. Perhaps 4. Then Marco Rossi was face down against Emilio Costa's desk, with Daniel's knee between his shoulder blades, and Paul twisting one arm behind him. Rosa remained on the floor. Her ears rang. For several seconds she heard nothing except a high, thin tone that seemed to come from inside her skull. Daniel's mouth moved. She couldn't understand the words. Paul picked up Marco's gun. Marco struggled once. Daniel drove him harder against the desk. Rosa stared at the bullet hole in the wall. A foot to the left. No, less. If she had moved a fraction slower. Someone touched her shoulder. Rosa recoiled violently. Daniel immediately lifted both hands. Rosa. His voice reached her through the ringing. Rosa, it's me. She blinked. Blood ran from Daniel's nose. You okay? She tried to answer. Nothing came out. Daniel crouched. Look at me. Those words. Emilio's words. Rosa looked at him. Are you hit? She looked down at herself as though the answer might be written somewhere on her clothes. No blood. No pain. I don't think so. Daniel exhaled. Good. Marco laughed. The sound was low and almost amused. Rosa turned toward him. His cheek was pressed against the desk. Even pinned, even disarmed. He looked controlled. You should have let me shoot her, he said. Daniel grabbed the back of his collar. Say one more thing to her. Marco smiled. What? You'll kill me? Daniel leaned closer. No. He'll want that privilege himself. Marco's expression shifted. Only slightly. But Rosa saw it. Not fear. Something close. Daniel looked back at Rosa. When the emergency call cut, we were in the guard station. We got here as fast as we could. Emilio. On his way. How far? Daniel checked his watch. 11 minutes out. Maybe less. Rosa nodded. 11 minutes. An ordinary amount of time. An eternity. Paul pulled Marco upright and forced his hands behind his back. Marco's immaculate suit was finally ruined. Dust streaked one sleeve. His tie had twisted. A small line of blood marked his lower lip. Rosa expected satisfaction. She felt none, only exhaustion. Marco looked at her while Paul secured his wrists. You think this changes anything? Rosa said nothing. He built his empire on the same bones I did. Shut up, Daniel said. Marco ignored him. Ask him. Rosa's stomach tightened. Ask him what? Marco smiled. Ask Emilio who signed Dominic Vega's death order. The room went still. Daniel's face changed. Paul looked at Rosa. Marco watched her. There it was. The last weapon available to him. Not the gun. The truth. Or something shaped like truth. Rosa stood slowly. Her knees were weak. What did you say? You heard me. Who signed it? Marco tilted his head. You really think Emilio told you everything? Daniel shoved him toward the door. We're done. Marco resisted long enough to look back at Rosa. Ask him why the Costa name is on the paper. Then he was dragged into the hallway. Rosa stood alone in the ruined study. The ringing in her ears returned. The Costa name. On the paper. She looked at the bullet hole again. Then at the shattered remains of her phone. Her mind tried to organize everything at once. Marco. Dominic. Emilio. The photograph. The promise. The kiss on her temple. Come home. She suddenly needed air. Rosa crossed to the open window. Rain blew in. She put both hands on the sill. Her fingers shook. A black SUV appeared at the bottom of the drive. Too fast. Another behind it. Then another. They came through the gates without slowing. Rosa knew the first one before it stopped. The rear door opened while the vehicle was still settling. Emilio stepped out. He wasn't wearing a coat. Rain struck his suit instantly. He ran. Rosa had never seen Emilio Costa run. Not once. He crossed the drive, took the front steps 2 at a time, and disappeared beneath the entrance. Then she heard him. Rosa. The entire house seemed to change around the sound. Emilio never shouted. Servants froze in corridors. Guards stepped aside. Rosa. She turned toward the doorway. Footsteps came fast. He appeared. For 1 second, Emilio Costa stood in the broken entrance to his study and looked at the room. The overturned chair. The shattered lamp. The bullet hole. Rosa. His face emptied. Not coldness. Something more frightening. He crossed the room without saying another word. His hands came to her face. Both of them. He turned her toward the light. His eyes moved over her forehead, throat, shoulders, chest. Where? I'm fine. Where did it hit you? It didn't. Rosa. It didn't. He stared at her. She saw the instant he believed her. His breath left him. Not dramatically. Just one broken exhale. His forehead dropped against hers. Rosa's hands instinctively caught his wrists. His skin was cold from the rain. You came back. Emilio closed his eyes. What did you think I would do? I didn't know if the call went through. It went through. His voice was rough. Enough, Daniel said. I heard the first part. Marco, Bianchi, the sit-down. Emilio lifted his head. And then the line died. His thumb moved across her cheekbone. I thought he killed you. The words came out so quietly, Rosa almost wished she hadn't heard them. Emilio. I was 6 minutes from downtown when Daniel called. 11 minutes back here. 11 minutes. His jaw clenched. Do you know what 11 minutes feels like when you don't know whether someone is alive? Rosa did. She knew exactly what time did when death might be waiting at the end of it. 11 years could fit inside 11 minutes. I kept him talking. I know. I knew Daniel and Paul were listening. You didn't know they'd reach you. No. Emilio looked toward the bullet hole. His hand dropped from her face. He walked to it, touched the torn wood, then turned. You stood there with a gun pointed at you. I wasn't going to let him take you. Something happened to Emilio's expression. All the anger went out of it, leaving something far more vulnerable. You could have died. So could you. That's different. No. Rosa. No. She stepped toward him. You don't get to decide your life matters less because you're used to people trying to kill you. His eyes held hers. You told me you don't lose valuable things twice. I shouldn't have said that. Why? Because you're not a thing. Then what am I? He went silent. Rosa's heart began to pound again. Not from the gun. Not from Marco. This frightened her more. What am I, Emilio? He looked away. Rosa laughed softly, painfully. That's what I thought. She turned. His hand closed around hers. Not hard. Enough. Don't. She stopped. Emilio stepped closer. I told myself I kept you near because you were useful. Rosa didn't turn around. I told myself you were an asset no one else could replicate, that I was protecting information, protecting an advantage. His grip tightened. I told myself that every day for 5 weeks. Rosa slowly faced him. And I'm done lying to myself. The room seemed to narrow around them. Rain moved against the windows. Somewhere downstairs, men were shouting orders. None of it reached Rosa. Then tell me something true. Emilio looked at her, as though the answer might hurt. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know how to lose you. Rosa stopped breathing. I know how to lose money, territory, men. I know what to do when someone betrays me. I know how to bury fear before anyone sees it. His fingers moved around hers. But I heard that line die, and I couldn't think. Rosa's eyes burned. You frightened me more in 11 minutes than anyone has in 20 years. That doesn't sound romantic. It isn't. A faint, broken smile touched his mouth. It's the closest thing to the truth I have. Rosa looked at him, then at the rain on his shoulders. The tie she had knotted only an hour earlier was crooked now. She reached up automatically, straightened it. Emilio covered her hand. The gesture pulled them closer. Rosa whispered, I thought I was going to die. His eyes closed for half a second. I know. I was afraid. I know. But I wasn't afraid of him. Emilio opened his eyes. I was afraid I would die before I told you. Told me what? Rosa had spent 11 years surviving because she knew when not to speak. She was suddenly tired of silence. That, I love you. Emilio became completely still. There was no taking it back. Rosa almost laughed from terror. Say something. He looked at her like a man hearing a language he had forgotten he knew. Then he raised one hand to the back of her neck. Slowly, giving her time to move. She didn't. His forehead touched hers again. You have terrible instincts. Rosa laughed through tears. I've been told they're exceptional. Not in men. No, definitely not in men. She smiled. Then, Emilio kissed her. There was nothing polished about it. No practiced seduction. No confidence. It began almost carefully, as though he still expected her to disappear if he moved too quickly. Rosa gripped the front of his wet shirt. The restraint broke. His other arm came around her waist. He pulled her close and kissed her with all the fear he had refused to show when he entered the room. Rosa felt it. The 11-minute drive. The bullet hole. The weeks of not saying what they both knew. When they finally separated, Emilio kept his forehead against hers. That was a mistake, he whispered. Rosa's heart sank. Then he added, because now I am going to be completely unreasonable about your security. She laughed. Actually laughed. Emilio's eyes closed briefly at the sound. Don't. What? Do that. When I'm trying to stay angry. You're terrible at this. I know. The moment lasted only seconds. Then Rosa remembered Marco. The happiness disappeared. Emilio saw it immediately. What? She stepped back. Marco said something. Emilio's expression hardened. What? He told me to ask you who signed Dominic's death order. No reaction. Too little reaction. Rosa saw that too. Emilio. He looked toward the study door. Then back. Not here. The cold hollow returned. You know. I know there is a file. You promised me everything. And I meant it. Then why are you avoiding the question? I'm not. Who signed it? Emilio's silence answered first. Rosa stared at him. Who? My father's name is on the authorization. The room disappeared beneath her feet. Your father, Emilio Costa. You knew. I learned 3 days ago. Rosa stepped back. You knew for 3 days. I was verifying it. 3 days. I wasn't going to give you half a truth. You kissed me this morning. Rosa, you let me tie your tie and tell you to come home while you knew your family signed the paper that killed my brother. I knew a document carried my father's name. I didn't know the circumstances. She looked at him in disbelief. That's your defense? No. Good. Rosa moved toward the door. Emilio followed. Don't walk away like this. How should I walk away? After you hear everything. She stopped. Fine. Emilio exhaled. My father controlled Bronx collections then. Marco administered them. Dominic owed money, yes, but that wasn't why he was killed. Rosa said nothing. He protected another boy. What boy? A teenager. 16. From what? A beating. Rosa's eyes filled. That sounded like Dominic. Stupid. Loyal. Unable to leave someone weaker alone. He intervened. Emilio continued. Humiliated one of Marco's men. Marco wanted an example. So he asked your father. Yes. And your father signed it. Yes. The word broke something. Where were you? 29 years old. Running logistics for the family. I wasn't boss. But you were a Costa. Yes. You benefited from everything your father built. Yes. And Dominic died under it. Yes. Rosa stared at him. He did not defend himself. That made it worse. Because there was nothing she could fight. No Lee to expose. Only history. Only blood. Only a man she loved, standing inside the name that had destroyed the person she'd loved first. Did you know a boy had been killed? Afterward. And Emilio's jaw tightened. I did nothing. Why? Because I was a coward, in the way men like me call practical. Rosa looked at him. I told myself it wasn't my territory. Not my order. Not my responsibility. His voice lowered. I remember hearing someone had been pulled from the river. I remember thinking it was ugly. He swallowed, and then I went to dinner. Rosa's face crumpled before she could stop it. Emilio stepped toward her. She raised a hand. No. He stopped immediately. I need to leave. Rosa, I need to leave this house. Not tonight. Her eyes flashed. You said I could walk. And you can. Then don't stop me. I'm not stopping you. Then why not tonight? Because Marco's network doesn't disappear because he's in a basement. He's in your basement? Under guard. Of course he is. Rosa, Bianchi's men were expecting to kill me today. Marco had help inside and outside this house. Until I know who. I don't care. I do. That's the problem. Emilio went silent. Rosa looked at him. I don't know if I love you because you protected me. I don't know if I stayed because you gave me Dominic back. I don't know how much of this is real, and how much happened because you made me feel safe inside a world that took everything from me. His face changed with each word. I need to know what I choose when I'm not standing in your house, surrounded by your men, tied to your war. Then go. The answer came so quickly, Rosa blinked. Emilio's voice remained quiet. If leaving is what you need, go. Her throat tightened. New argument. I want to lock every door in this house and put 6 men outside your room. A humorless smile. I want to tell you, you're too important to leave. He stepped closer, but did not touch her. But if I do that, Marco was right about me keeping strays, and you were right about not being property. Rosa looked at him. So go. Emilio, I'll give you a car. No. Daniel. No. Rosa. You said go. His jaw tightened. At least let Daniel drive. She almost refused, then remembered the bullet. Fina. Emilio nodded. When? Now. Pain crossed his face. Brief. Controlled. Now. Rosa went upstairs. She packed 1 suitcase. 8 months in Emilio Costa's mansion fit into surprisingly little space. Clothes. Shoes. A framed photograph of Dominic. The old ring she kept beside the bed when she slept. She changed out of her maid's uniform. That mattered. Jeans. Dark sweater. Coat. When she came downstairs, Emilio stood in the foyer, the exact place where everything had started. He did not approach. Daniel waited outside. Rosa looked at Emilio. Neither knew what to say. Finally, he asked, Where will you go? My apartment. I can have someone check. No. He stopped. Okay. Rosa picked up her suitcase. Don't have anyone follow me. Emilio said nothing. Emilio. His face became painfully neutral. I won't. She knew immediately it was a lie. And strangely, she loved him for trying badly enough that she could see it. Far away, she said. What? If you absolutely have to put someone near me, keep them far enough away that I don't see them. Something almost like relief entered his face. I can do that. I know. Rosa walked toward the door. Come home. The words stopped her. She turned. Emilio's expression broke. Only slightly. Not tonight, he said. Not tomorrow. But someday. Rosa couldn't answer. She left. The apartment she had rented for almost 3 years seemed smaller than she remembered. It had always been small. 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, a fire escape overlooking an alley. Before Emilio, Rosa had loved the place because nothing about it mattered. No one important lived there. No one watched it. No black cars waited outside. Now she stood inside and felt the walls closing in. She unpacked half the suitcase, stopped, sat on the bed. She found Dominic's photograph. He was 20. Rosa was 17. He had one arm around her shoulders and a cigarette tucked behind his ear. Both were laughing. She hadn't remembered the laughter correctly. That realization hurt. For 11 years, she had remembered Dominic mostly as absence. The hospital identification, the river, the closed coffin, the police detective who wouldn't look her in the eye. She had forgotten the living details. The way he over-salted eggs, how badly he sang, how he always pretended not to care whether she came home on time, then waited awake anyway. Rosa touched the photograph. "You idiot." Her voice broke. "You stupid, stupid idiot." He had died protecting a 16-year-old boy. Of course he had. Dominic had always been reckless in the direction of other people. Rosa cried until morning. No guards knocked. No phone rang. Emilio kept his distance. Mostly. At 10 the next day, Rosa looked out her window and saw a gray sedan half a block away. It moved 20 minutes later. Another replaced it after lunch. Far enough. Exactly as promised. She almost smiled. Then didn't. For 3 days, Rosa stayed inside. On the 4th, she went to the Bronx. She did not tell Emilio. Daniel's gray sedan followed at a distance. Rosa pretended not to notice. Her old neighborhood had changed. The bakery was now a pharmacy. The social club Dominic once entered through a side door had become a laundromat. 2 apartment buildings had been repainted. The church looked smaller. Rosa stood outside the building where she had grown up. A woman pushed a stroller past her. A teenager shouted from a window. Life had continued without permission. She walked to the river. The sky was pale and clear. For 11 years, Rosa had imagined the East River as something black. In memory, it was always night. Always raining. In reality, sunlight moved across the surface. Joggers passed behind her. A ferry cut through the distance. Rosa stood beside the railing. "Hi, Dom." She felt ridiculous, then began crying anyway. "I found him." Her fingers tightened around the rail. Not the man. The truth. She looked at the water. "You got yourself killed for some kid." A laugh escaped through tears. "Of course you did." The wind pushed hair across her face. "I spent 11 years being angry at you." She had never admitted that. Not once. "For leaving me. For making me identify you. For teaching me all that stupid survival stuff and then being the one who didn't survive." Rosa closed her eyes. "I thought if I ever knew who did it, something would change." Nothing had. The river still moved. Dominic was still dead. Marco's confession had not restored a single day. Emilio's guilt had not made him more alive. Rosa understood something then. She had built her whole life around the empty space Dominic left. First, by running. Then by hiding. Then by chasing the men responsible. Even her work with Emilio had been shaped by the promise of Dominic's truth. 11 years. 11 years given to dead men. Rosa opened her eyes. "I'm tired." The words disappeared into the wind. "I miss you." She stayed until afternoon. When she turned away from the railing, a familiar man stood 30 feet away. No Daniel. Paul. He pretended to be examining his phone. Rosa walked toward him. Paul looked guilty. "Far enough?" "Not really." "Sorry." "Emilio," he said, invisible. "You're 6'4". Paul considered that. "Fair." Rosa almost smiled, then noticed something else. Paul's shoulders were too tense. His gaze kept moving behind her. "What?" "Nothing." "Don't." He looked at her. "What?" "Don't tell me nothing when something is wrong." Paul exhaled. "Get in the car." "Why?" "Rosa." "Why?" He stepped closer. "Someone asked about you at the old neighborhood this morning." The cold hollow returned. "Who?" "2 men. One showed your photograph." "Marco." "We think so. But he's locked up. His organization isn't." Rosa looked toward the street. A black sedan turned the corner. "Normal." "Probably." Her instincts screamed anyway. Paul opened the passenger door. "Please." Rosa got in. He drove. "Where?" "Safe house." "No." "Emilio's orders." "No." Paul glanced at her. "Do you want to argue with me, or the men looking for you?" I want Emilio. Paul's expression changed. Then we're going home. Home. Rosa noticed the word. She did not correct him. Emilio was in the study when she returned. Not the mansion study. A secondary office on the lower floor. The main one still had a bullet hole being repaired. He stood when she entered. Their eyes met. 4 days. It felt longer. Rosa had rehearsed 100 things she might say. All disappeared. You look tired, Emilio said. So do you. I always look tired. True. Silence. Paul closed the door behind her. Emilio looked at him. Report. 2 men asking around the Bronx. Photo matched Rosa's employee file. Emilio's face went cold. Which file? Old personnel database. Who had access? Marco, Bennett, Mrs. Bell, 2 administrators. Bring Bennett. Already downstairs. Good. Paul left. Rosa watched Emilio. You didn't ask me to come back. No. Why? Because you asked for space. You could have ignored me. I ignore most people. Not me. No. The answer was immediate. Rosa looked away. I went to the river. Emilio said nothing. I talked to Dominic. Still nothing. He didn't answer. I imagine not. She smiled faintly. I remembered things. Good things? Some. Rosa looked at him. I don't want revenge anymore. Emilio's expression shifted. I thought I did. She moved farther into the room. I thought if I found the men, I'd know what to do with them. And now? I know what I don't want. What? To become them. Emilio studied her. That's not weakness. I know. You didn't a month ago. I know. The silence changed. Rosa took a breath. I also know I don't want to run anymore. Emilio's eyes sharpened. Rosa, I spent 11 years running from men like you. That's probably still the intelligent decision. Maybe. She stepped closer. But I'm done. He didn't move. I don't want to be your maid. Good. I don't want to be your asset. Good. I don't want 6 guards deciding when I can breathe. 5. Rosa stared at him. Emilio's mouth almost twitched. That was a joke. Terrible one. I haven't practiced. She fought a smile. I'm serious. Suami. Rosa stopped in front of him. If I stay because I choose to. Yes. If I help you, I know what I'm agreeing to. Yes. If you hide something from me because you think you're protecting me, I won't. You will. Emilio considered it. Probably. Then, I'll leave again. Understood. And I decide when I need protection. No. Rosa blinked. No? That part is non-negotiable. She glared at him. Emilio folded his arms. Someone showed your photograph in the Bronx today. I know. Someone put a gun on you 4 days ago. I remember. So protection is not optional. Emilio, you may choose the men. What? You choose who stays near you. You choose distance. You choose whether they enter your rooms. But you do not walk through a war alone to prove you're independent. Rosa stared at him. That's the compromise? That's the compromise. She thought about it. Daniel. Done. Paul. Done. No one else unless I agree. Emilio hesitated. Fine. And they don't call me ma'am. I have no control over that. You control everyone. Not Paul. Rosa laughed. This time, Emilio allowed himself to smile. Then the smile disappeared. You said if you stay, I am. His eyes held hers. Why? Rosa looked at the man standing before her. Not the Shadow King. Not the Costa name. Not the boy who had ignored Dominic's death years ago. The man who had told her the truth even when it made her leave. The man who had let her. The man who had protected her badly enough that she still saw the gray sedan. Because I love you. He exhaled. And because I don't forgive your father. I wouldn't ask you to. I don't forgive the system he built. I don't ask that either. And some part of me may always hate that you were inside it. Emilio nodded. I may hate that too. Rosa stepped close enough to touch him. But I love who you are trying not to become. Something in him softened. That's a dangerous standard. Then meet it. His hand came to her cheek. I'll try. Good. He kissed her. This time there was no gunshot. No fear. No interrupted confession. Just choice. When they separated, Emilio rested his forehead against hers. Then the office door opened. Paul entered. Sorry. Emilio did not move away from Rosa. You don't look sorry. I'm not. Rosa laughed. Paul held a folder. We have a problem. Emilio's expression changed instantly. What? Bennett's gone. What do you mean, gone? He was downstairs. Daniel went to bring him up. Guard outside the holding room was unconscious. Window open. Emilio stepped away from Rosa. How long? 10 minutes. Lock the grounds. Already done. Bennett have a phone? Not when we brought him in. Then, he had help. Rosa felt every instinct sharpen. Marco. Paul nodded. Or someone still working for Marco. Emilio looked at Rosa. Stay here. She gave him a look. He corrected himself. Come with me. Better. The next 48 hours dismantled every illusion that Marco's arrest had ended anything. Bennett was not simply an accountant. He had been moving money through shell companies for nearly 6 years. 3 security men disappeared from their posts before questioning. A warehouse in Brooklyn burned before Emilio's people reached it. Bianchi denied everything. Too quickly. Rosa sat in meetings she once would have entered, only to serve coffee. Now Emilio placed her beside him. Some men disliked it. She noticed. An older capo, named Morelli, barely looked at her. A younger man, named Victor Hale, looked too much. Rosa recorded both. By the second night, they had a pattern. Marco's network expected Emilio to retaliate emotionally. Attack Bianchi. Move troops. Expose himself. Instead, Emilio did nothing visible. That made everyone nervous, especially Marco. Emilio finally allowed Rosa to see him. Marco was held in a secure basement room beneath one of the family's commercial properties. No chains, no torture, just a table, a chair, and 2 guards outside. Marco looked almost amused when Rosa entered with Emilio, so she came back. Emilio took the seat opposite him. Rosa remained standing. Marco looked at her. You really don't learn. I learn very well. Then you should know what happens to people he loves. Emilio's gaze hardened. Marco smiled. Everyone becomes a target. Rosa answered before Emilio could. I was a target before he loved me. Marco's smile weakened. Because of you. No. She stepped closer. Because you noticed me. He said nothing. You keep blaming Emilio's mercy for making him weak. But mercy didn't expose me. Rosa held his eyes. You did. Marco leaned back. Is this why you brought her? Therapy? Emilio placed a photograph on the table. Bennett. Taken that morning. Alive. Marco's expression did not change. Found him, Emilio said. Congratulations. He talked. Everyone talks, when you're persuasive enough. He wasn't persuaded. Marco's eyes shifted. One fraction. Rosa saw. He came willingly, she said. Marco looked at her. You didn't know that. No. He didn't escape. Rosa understood from Emilio's expression. The entire escape had been staged. Bennett had been bait. Emilio had let the network believe he was loose. They had watched who contacted him. Marco's jaw tightened. Emilio placed 3 more photographs on the table. A doc 4-man. A security captain. A Bianchi intermediary. All yours. Marco looked at them. Formerly, you always did believe people were disposable. People are. Emilio leaned back. That's why you lost. Marco smiled. Have I? Yes. You still think this is about territory? No. Rosa watched both men. 19 years sat between them. Friendship, brotherhood, resentment. You were never able to understand why they followed me, Emilio said. Marco's eyes cooled. Because your father handed you a name. My father handed me fear. And you used it. At first, Emilio's voice remained calm. Then I learned fear only works, while people believe the punishment is worse than betrayal. Marco laughed. And loyalty? Choice. Naive. Is it? Emilio gestured toward the photographs. Your people turned on you. In 48 hours. Under threat. No. Rosa watched Marco's hands. The right one tightened. Emilio continued. Bennett came because you planned to kill his son if he was arrested. Marco's face froze. There. Rosa said it quietly. Marco turned toward her. That's what you never understand. What? You think fear makes people loyal. Rosa stepped closer. It only makes them wait for a safer person to betray. For the first time, Marco looked old. Emilio stood. It's over. Marco laughed softly. Nothing is over while Bianchi is alive. Emilio stopped. Rosa watched Marco. Too pleased. Too fast. He's lying, she said. Emilio looked at her. Marco's smile disappeared. Bianchi isn't the last move. Rosa moved around the table. Marco kept his eyes on her. You want him focused on Bianchi. Silence. Why? Marco said nothing. Rosa watched his left thumb, tapping once against the table. Again. A pattern. Not nerves. Waiting. Her mind moved. A warehouse burned. Guards vanished. Bennett escaped by design. Bianchi publicly denied involvement. The original assassination attempt had replaced Emilio's driver. The weakness had always been transportation. Cars. Emilio looked at her. What? Marco's first move was the driver. Her pulse accelerated. He studies routes. Marco stopped tapping. Rosa turned to Emilio. Where's Daniel? At the mansion. Pole? With the convoy. Which convoy? Emilio's eyes changed. The meeting tonight. Rosa went cold. What meeting? Morelli called it. When? 30 minutes ago. Who arranged the cars? Emilio already had his phone out. Security. Which security? No answer. His face hardened. Marco began laughing. Emilio called. No response. Again. Nothing. Rosa looked at Marco. What did you do? He smiled. Nothing. You're waiting. She leaned toward him. What are you waiting for? Marco's gaze moved to the clock. 8:47. Rosa saw. 9. Marco looked back at her. Too late. You planned something for 9. Emilio was already at the door. Move. They ran. Outside, rain had started again. 3 SUVs waited. Rosa stopped. No. Emilio turned. What? She looked at the vehicles. Too clean. All identical. One sat slightly lower at the rear. Don't use the middle car. Paul opened the driver's door. Why? Rear suspension. He looked. Rosa pointed. It's carrying extra weight. Emilio's face changed. Everyone back. Paul moved instantly. Men scattered. The bomb squad arrived 12 minutes later. They found enough explosive beneath the rear compartment to tear the convoy apart. Marco had planned it before his arrest. The vehicle had been switched into rotation weeks earlier. One final lesson. One last argument for fear. Emilio stood beside Rosa, while men worked under floodlights. You did it again. She looked at him. Saw what everyone missed? Saved my life. Technically Paul's too. Paul called from behind them. Thank you. Rosa smiled, then looked at Emilio. I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this. Good. What? I don't want you to either. She studied him. What happens now? Now, Marco's network dies. Rosa stiffened. Emilio saw it. Financially. Oh. A faint smile. I can be taught. Over the next week, Emilio did exactly that. Accounts frozen. Businesses transferred. Men offered exits. Evidence quietly delivered to prosecutors where useful. Some people vanished from the Costa organization without vanishing from the world. Rosa understood the difference. Marco lost everything before anyone touched him. In the end, Emilio did not kill him. That surprised everyone. Most of all Marco. Rosa visited him one final time, before federal agents arrived, to take custody on charges carefully assembled from Bennett's testimony and years of financial records. Marco sat across the table. You convinced him. No. Then why am I alive? Because Emilio chose. Marco scoffed. Merci. No. Rosa shook her head. Consequence. What difference? If he killed you, you'd die believing you proved him right. Marco's face hardened. This way you get to live long enough to watch everything continue without you. That finally hurt him. Rosa saw it. She stood. Dominic would hate you. Marco looked up. He hated everyone. No. Rosa almost smiled. He would mostly think you're boring. She left. 2 weeks later, Emilio brought her a folder. No guards. No study. They sat in the library near the fireplace. The folder was thick. Rosa knew what it contained without asking. Everything? Everything. She touched the cover. Every man? Every name I could verify. Still alive? Some. Your father? Dead. Marco? Included. Rosa stared at the folder. For 11 years I wanted this. I know. You said I could decide. Yes. What happens if I give you names? Emilio did not lie. They won't hurt anyone again. Rosa looked at him. That's not what I asked. No. He understood. If you ask me to kill them, I will. The fire cracked. Rosa looked down. There it was. Revenge. Simple. Available. No police. No unanswered calls. No detectives looking at their shoes. Just a sentence. She could name them. Emilio would make it happen. Dominic's killers would die. She imagined satisfaction. Nothing came. Instead, she saw Dominic at 20, laughing, telling bad jokes, protecting a 16-year-old kid he barely knew. Would he want blood? Maybe. Dominic had not been a saint, but Rosa knew something more important. He would never want her life shaped around his death. She picked up the folder. Emilio remained silent. Rosa walked to the fireplace, opened the metal grate. For one moment, she hesitated, then placed the folder in the flames. Emilio stood. Rosa. She pushed it farther in. The edge caught. Paper curled. Ink blackened. Names disappeared before she ever read them. Emilio Stared. You don't want to know? I know enough. The men. They took 11 years. Her voice broke. Rosa watched the paper burn. I'm not giving them 12. Tears ran down her face. They don't get my marriage. They don't get my mornings. They don't get every time I walk into a room and wonder if one of them is inside. She wiped her cheek. They don't get anything else. Emilio looked at the fire, then at hair. Marriage? Rosa froze. She had not meant to say that. Emilio's expression became almost amused. Interesting choice of word. Forget it. I don't forget things. Emilio. Rosa. She glared at him. He smiled, then became serious. Do you want that? What? A life. The question sounded strange from him. With me. Rosa looked toward the windows. Beyond them stood guards. Black cars. A world that would never be peaceful. You can't promise me safe. No. You can't promise nobody will ever put a gun on me. No. You can't promise our house won't need guards. No. She looked at him. You're terrible at proposals. His eyes widened slightly. Was I proposing? You'd better not be. I had planned something considerably more impressive. Rosa laughed. He came closer. For 11 years, I thought being safe meant seeing nothing. She touched his tie. Charcoal. Always charcoal when he was uncertain. Now I know better. What do you know? Seeing danger doesn't mean it owns you. Her hand found his. And loving someone dangerous doesn't mean I belong to his danger. Emilio's fingers closed around hers. You belong to no one. Good answer. I've practiced. Rosa smiled. I choose you. The words changed him. Even now, after everything, his eyes softened in the way they only did for her. I choose you too. That's almost romantic. I'm improving. He kissed her beside the burning names of the men who had haunted her for 11 years. For the first time, Rosa did not imagine Dominic watching. The dead had earned their rest. So had she. They married in spring. Not in a cathedral. Rosa refused. The ceremony took place in a small stone church, 30 miles outside Manhattan. 40 guests. 16 armed guards. 3 black SUVs at the front. 4 at the back. Rosa counted them automatically. She noticed the man beside the east door touching his earpiece too often. He was nervous, not dangerous. She noticed Paul's tie was crooked. Daniel was pretending not to cry. Mrs. Bell actually was crying and made no attempt to hide it. Emilio stood at the altar in a black suit. No weapon visible. Rosa knew there was one under the jacket anyway. Some things would never change. She walked toward him. No one gave her away. She had asked for that. She had spent too much of her life being handed from one form of safety to another. This time she walked alone because she chose where she was going. Emilio watched her every step. For once, his eyes did not move to the doors, did not check the guards, did not scan the windows, only her. When she reached him, Rosa whispered, "You're not watching the room. I hired 16 men for that." 17. What? 1 near the kitchen. Emilio almost laughed during the ceremony. Afterward, Paul complained that Rosa had identified an extra guard while walking down the aisle. I noticed things. So I've heard. Life did not become simple after marriage. Rosa had never expected it to. There were nights Emilio came home at 3 in the morning. There were arguments about security. There were mornings Rosa hated the men outside. There were days Emilio closed himself emotionally, and she had to remind him that silence was not protection. There were moments when the Costa name still felt heavy. But there were also ordinary things. Coffee, 3 sugars. Joseph, still tending roses. Emilio learning to cook eggs and failing spectacularly. Rosa laughing at him. Sunday mornings with phones turned off for exactly 2 hours. And the tie. That never changed. Every morning before Emilio left, Rosa stood in front of him. Sometimes in a robe. Sometimes fully dressed for meetings of her own. Never in the maid's uniform again. He would hand her the tie. Charcoal. Navi. Oxblood. She would cross the wide end. Over the narrow. Pull it through. Tighten. The first time she had done it, a stranger with a gun had waited outside. Now years seemed contained inside the gesture. One rainy morning, Emilio watched her hands. You know I can tie these myself. No, you can't. I run an international organization. You make terrible knots. That's slander. It's observation. He smiled. Rosa tightened the knot. Outside, the black cars waited. Guards moved beneath umbrellas. The world remained dangerous. Rosa saw every bit of it. She saw the man at the gate checking license plates. She saw Paul's coat open enough to reveal a holster. She saw rain gathering along the windows. Once those details would have meant one thing: run. Now they were simply facts. Affirmation, not destiny. She smoothed Emilio's tie, then looked into his eyes. Come home. He went still. Even after all this time, those 2 words meant something. Emilio bent and kissed her temple. Always. Rosa smiled. You can't promise that. No. He touched her cheek. But I can intend to. She remembered the first morning. The assassin. The lie of invisibility. The frightened girl standing in a kitchen with her hands submerged in cold water. She had thought then that being seen would destroy her. Instead, being seen had forced her to become someone she had spent 11 years avoiding. Herself. Emilio offered his arm. Rosa took it. Together they walked toward the door. The guards straightened. Rain moved across the drive. Black cars waited beyond the glass. Rosa saw them. She saw everything. The danger. The cost. The love. The life she had chosen. And for the first time, seeing the whole truth did not make her want to run. Rosa Vega opened the door and walked into it with her eyes wide open.